Hi, and welcome back to Jen and Dan's Natural Healing with Plants, the go-to podcast for holistic health seekers looking to harness the power of nature for health and healing. I'm Jen. I'm a passionate health educator, a whole food culinary coach, and master herbalist. And I'm joined by Dan, an exercise specialist and a wonderful master herbalist. Together, we dive into the world of natural healing, bringing you a wealth of knowledge and practical advice. We draw from both traditional wisdom and modern science with herbs and foods to help you achieve optimal health. So, today's topic is a little bit controversial. It's something that we learned a lot about at the School of Natural Healing in several different classes. And though we don't believe in protocols, it does have to be individualized. There was one thing that every single program started with, and that was parasites. And the reason why it's so controversial is if you went to your doctor right now and said, I think I have parasites, they would probably laugh at you. And so um, I think that it is an issue. And I think it's a lot more common than we think it is. And I think it's very important that we address this. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Well, I used to not, I used to not think a lot about parasites. I think it was because I don't want it to be true.
Yeah,
Because just one more thing you have to deal with. We talk about chemical toxins, those are real.
yeah,
And I'm like, God, I'd rather have to do a parasite cleanse. And then you
right.
sent me that video from Dr. Greger
Yes.
about the parasites getting into your brain. I'm like, oh my God, in your brain.
Yes. Yes. There's research behind this. There's research
Yes.
about parasites in the body. So it's not just woo-woo
Yeah.
stuff people are making up, which before we keep going, I want to remind everyone that this material is for educational purposes and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace your medical care. So anything that you hear today, make sure you run it by your medical professional. Unfortunately, when we're talking about parasites, that might not go so well, but it is something that is in our world. And even my functional medicine doctor, that was one of the first things she did with me was do a parasite cleanse.
And so does our school, the natural healing. I mean, the first thing they do
Yes.
is it's the gut reset.
Right. Yeah, somebody comes in, they have a heart condition, you start them with a parasite cleanse. Somebody comes in, they have some kind of cancer, you start with a parasite cleanse. Somebody comes in, they have skin issues, start with a parasite cleanse. Digestive issues, I already said skin problems, even just fatigue, brain fog, strange food cravings, unexplained weight gain or weight loss. We start with a parasite cleanse.
Yes, and you reminded me there is a book we got from the School of Natural Healing, Dr. Mom.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the client? She had a client. He was male. I think he was middle aged. He was having heart problems all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And she recommended a parasite cleanse, and that is what it was. Once he did
Yeah.
the cleanse, his heart, whatever's going on, it healed.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. And it
Mhm.
just reminded me too. I remember like a lot of children, especially children who suck their thumb, have pinworms and are treated with pinworms. And that's very common. Because children, especially like toddlers, or even if they're a little bit older, and they're outside, they play in the dirt, maybe they have an animal in the house, and they're sucking their thumb. It's very common to have pinworms. And I've had people in my family who've had pinworms. I've had someone who had a tapeworm. And so I wonder how common that is. Something that I also learned this week from another podcast was that it was a medical professional that had worked with the CDC, and the number, it says something like 60 million Americans have parasites, but that number has been the same for years and years and years, like decades. Decades. The number never changes, which is interesting. Like, why wouldn't the number change when other illnesses? And it's very difficult to diagnose parasites. So in the medical world, A, they don't test it anyway. And B, parasites are wonderful at hiding. They can burrow into tissue so that they're not detected. And there are some ways to help get a better sense of if there's parasites present, but they're very good at hiding. And I know for me, I had a stool test. I've had several different stool tests. Y'all have heard me talk about that. But I had one, I'm trying to remember how far back, 2 or 3 years ago, that actually did show parasites. And it was one of them that does have, that burrows down into the tissue. And so I was lucky that they were able to detect it. But it's hard to even detect them.
Yes, and other countries they still check for parasites. And I know my mom always tells me stories when she was a child. In that generation, they would do cleanses every month on their children because it wasn't lost to them. And a lot of our American doctors believe that our country, since we're so much more hygienic, we have working sewage systems, things like that, they believe that we don't get parasites here because the infrastructure is cleaner, but you still could get parasites from eating things like pork or even you can go out to a field if they don't wash the produce well enough, you can get parasites from that, leafy
Right.
greens.
Your salad at a restaurant, how well did
Yeah.
they wash their salad?
Yeah.
How many people handled that salad, right?
Hmm.
And how well did they wash their hands? What did they dry their hands on, and what did they touch before they touched your salad?
Yes.
Yeah,
And I always bring up pork because it has parasites that you cannot kill with cooking.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, our listeners are not eating pork. We are, but Dan and I are both 100% whole food plant-based, and so we do not encourage people to eat pork. And there's several different reasons we could get into why not to eat pork. But yes, definitely, if you do eat pork, there's a highly, highly, highly good chance that you have it. If you eat sushi, definitely. If you eat raw vegetables in restaurants, there's a high chance as well. And I used to do cleanses. I used to do cleanses with my clients. Every season, we would do one. It was a very gentle cleanse. And then in the fall and the spring, I would do a deeper cleanse. And I always started clients off with just a simple cleanse that wasn't very deep. And then the next season, they'd go a little deeper. And the next season, they'd go a little deeper. And a few years ago, I actually past worms, which for you to be able to see them, they're old. And if they're older, then there's more than one, right? And I had one that was probably 4 to 6 inches long. I shared them with the group. Before I shared it, I was like, does anyone want to see it? It's kind of gross to see a worm in the toilet. There was nothing else in the toilet. And people wanted to see it. And so I actually posted the picture of this worm. It was two of them that I passed. And now that we're talking about this, it dawned on me, I haven't really I did a parasite cleanse last year, but I only did it kind of half-assed. I didn't do the whole thing the way that I should have. And I also traveled outside of the country a couple of times last year as well. And I had a litter of dogs that had worms as well. And so they were dewormed, but I wasn't dewormed as they were. And you're touching your dogs. It's so easy to pass these to each other. And then my husband's never done a parasite cleanse. So even if I had that parasite that goes in the intestines, there's highly likely that he does too. So even though I've cleansed mine out, if he didn't cleanse his out, I probably got it right back from him.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that it's important to do a
Hmm.
parasite cleanse every year because I think it was last year my face started breaking out.
Yeah.
And so I did a parasite cleanse and it
Yeah.
really helped my face. It helped my face a lot.
Yeah, I had a client, the same thing. She did a cleanse last year for her skin, the same thing. She had
Mhm.
some breakouts on her face, and she kept saying, I really think it's a parasite. And so we did the cleanse, and it was amazing how much cleaner her skin was. And when I used to do the cleanses with my clients, we would do, after just the first week, it was like, wow, I did, my skin always looked nice. It was like, wow, my skin really looks nice. And so it's interesting that you pointed that out. I want to say, like we talked about these schools, like we have different herbal certifications. We both went to school of natural healing, but all of these herbalists going back, they talk about first line is cleansing the body, cleansing my, making sure you're pooping. You have to poop. If you have things in your body and you're not pooping, they're recirculating. They're um, they're repopulating, and it's just going to get worse and worse. So first of all, we have to get the body functioning properly. We have to do a good cleanse, and then we have to strengthen that terrain and rebuild that microbiome. And that was something else that was very important in all of our schools. And so that's eating very high fiber foods, prebiotics, things like that to repopulate the beneficial microbes we want in the gut, because we don't want to invite those parasites or bacteria or viruses, the pathogens back in. We want to crowd them out. And so while we're fighting these things or killing these things or getting these things out and cleanse, we need to be restoring that terrain so we can build that back up to strengthen the rest of the body and rebalance the body.
Yes, and I brought up just a minute ago the thing about Michael Greger, and this is what really got me. I did not know that this was a thing. This brain parasite is talking about.
Yeah,
It can actually change, huh?
Toxoplasma gondii, if you want to look it up. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you. I just thought you might
So
want to Google
yeah,
it. Toxoplasma gondii. Hmm.
it was making me think, it can cause behavior changes, cognition changes. So I started to think,
Yeah,
dementia and things are on the rise. Could this
right.
be a part of this? Could it be? Because a lot of doctors aren't checking for this.
No, they're not. They're not. Yeah, it changes your mood, it changes your cognition, creates neuroinflammation,
Mhm.
brain fog. It's been closely tied to schizophrenia, epilepsy, all sorts of neurodegenerative conditions. So it also made me think, is it related to this rise in um, autism and the autism spectrum? Is it because there are parasites? And so people out there are going to be like, y'all are so woo-woo or crazy, and maybe we'll even get shut down for talking about something like this. But isn't it worth looking into or considering?
Well, especially if you're suffering from something like that and nobody can find an answer.
Yeah, if you're having crazy cravings, your appetite has changed. It can even affect your sleep, especially around the full moon. Pay attention. Maybe you don't even do anything. You just pay attention to how does your body change with the moon, because parasites are more active with the moon. They're also more active at night. So if you're having trouble sleeping at night, it's something to consider. Am I telling you to do a parasite cleanse? Absolutely not. I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that if you had these things going on, it might be something you need to do some research on.
Exactly.
Maybe
I
you're not
think,
absorbing your nutrients. Maybe you're taking 1,000 supplements, which I was taking 82 capsules at one time. I don't know if you remember that. My doctor had me on 82 pills.
yeah.
And I would do blood work and I would still be low in all these B vitamins and iron. And it was like, what the what? Well, parasites will use up the iron. And so if you're taking iron and you're still not getting iron in your body, it could be because you have parasites. They're consuming these things and your body's not.
And the thing about it is, and this is a lot of people don't know this, but you can get parasites from walking on barefoot on the dirt sometimes.
Right. You go out and ground because grounding's so good for you.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so easy for them to pass into your skin, but you're thinking, oh, I just walked out there briefly and it was just in my yard, right?
Yeah.
But is it
Yeah.
your yard where a dog or your dog is out there peeing or pooping, or your cat, birds?
Yeah. You
Right.
never know
Right.
what's happening.
Yeah, you don't know what all you're stepping on. And so let's talk about some herbs. So first we get the bowels moving. The bowels need
Oh,
to be
yeah.
moving. The urinary tract needs to be flowing. So we work back up in the system. So yes, we're pooping. We eat a large meal. We have to go poop. Yay, that's functioning appropriately. Then we start using herbs. Well, I recommend that you work with an herbalist, because if you go in with some high intense herbs, you are going to get sick, 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 sick. You have to use them in a combination with other tools. Um, Otherwise, you have die off symptoms. You feel like you have the flu. You may not even be able to get out of bed. That has happened to me. So I'm a very, very, very sensitive person. And when I did that cleanse with my doctor, I kept telling her I can't do it. I'm too sick. And it was what she gave me was just too high of a dose. And I ended up, I had all these die off symptoms, and I literally could not get out of the bed. And if I got out of the bed, I could make it to the couch, but I had to function and work and see clients, and I couldn't because I couldn't get off the couch. And so you have to go start very low and slow and do things in combination. But there are some started to say the first herb. There are some herbs that are very helpful with removing these. And some of them are food. And so you can use them as a food, and occasionally work them into your foods so that that helps with some killing some things. But if you're going to do a deep cleanse, I want you to work with somebody knowledgeable.
Yes, when I followed the Helder Clark cleanse, it was very eye-opening the way you had to start out low and then
Yes.
you work your way up to these mega doses. But if you were to do the mega dose at first, you would be sorry
Right.
for that. But I mean, one of the big ones is going to be wormwood. That's one of the ones that is traditionally used, and that is part of the Holder Clark cleanse, which I recommend hers. That's the only one I've ever really done. I know you've done
Oh,
other ones,
I've
but
done
it,
lots of different ones. Yeah, there
yeah.
there are a lot out there, and there's some really good ones. I know Kim Rogers has a great combination of different herbs and things, and Hulda Clark. I've even done. There's one called Paragard. That one's a very gentle one, so that would be a good one for somebody who's just starting. Once again, we're not telling you to take these things. We are just telling you things we have had experience with. There's one through the School of Natural Healing, a combination there. I've done that one. They have an intestinal. Oh, I can't think of the name, but it's a combination. You do a couple of them together. You can Google that with the School of Natural Healing. They have a couple of different ones too, but they have these combinations with wormwood, with black walnut hull, clove. Clove is another one. Clove is very, very powerful, but it needs to be fresh clove. And so if you're ordering, you're getting cloves at your grocery store or you're ordering cloves off of Amazon, you don't know how long they've been sitting on a shelf. They're not going to be as potent. So it needs to be like you buy the whole cloves and grind them in a coffee grinder or something like that. So you have nice fresh cloves, but you don't want to just do it right off the bat. Um, that is really good at helping with killing um, eggs and things like that. And so that's another thing. So if you do a 30-day cleanse, that might be great. And you may have killed the parents, you may have killed um, the newborns or whatever, but there could be eggs. And so then the eggs hatch and then you have another round. And so you can't just do 30 days. You actually have to go a little bit longer. There are some foods you can use. I mentioned clove, but you could use garlic, fresh garlic, not the garlic that comes in the jar in the grocery store. Smash your own garlic, use it in those ways. What are some other things we could use?
Well, you can use pumpkin seeds, which is a really easy food to find.
Yes, my favorite.
Papaya. I don't like the taste of it,
I hate papaya. Yeah, but papaya
but it's
seeds are fabulous.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're very peppery, but they're wonderful for cleansing the gut. Um, Oregon grapefruit.
Yeah, Oregon Great Root. That's I believe that is in Dr. Christopher's one of his liver formulas. I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it is too. I know it's in a couple of his formulas.
Hmm.
Yeah, oregano,
Oh
another
yeah, oregano.
another very, very powerful. So you can use the herbs on your foods and things like that, but using something like an oregano oil that might wipe out too much. And so you want to tread lightly. You want to tread lightly with some of these. Yeah, and you want to work in ways that support the whole body while you're using these herbs as well, because we need to protect the whole gut lining. If we're killing off a bunch of stuff, we need to make sure that we're still keeping the gut lining intact, and so making sure that we're still eating foods and things that help with detoxification and help with maintaining that gut integrity.
Yeah, we can use that's the thing about some of these cleanses. Like, okay, I did the Holder Clark cleanse and she recommended you do it for at least 6 months. But she recommended to keep doing it for over a year. I just thought, I don't know if you could keep doing that like continuously for a year because these herbs are heavy hitters. I was starting to think about, well, what about my good
Me too.
bacteria?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And we don't want to keep killing, because then we're not
Yeah.
going to build up the terrain and strengthen
Mhm.
what's there if we keep
Yeah.
killing. And if we keep killing, what is going to grow? Just like we hear about antibiotic resistant bacteria, Well, we have these other organisms in our body that are resistant to some of these things. And so we might be killing off the worms, but what are we growing in the process? And so we don't want to do anything too long term. We don't want to do it over and over again. Like I said, it's best to work with somebody who's knowledgeable about these different herbs and that can help you rotate the different things that you're doing, rotate different foods as well as herbs to protect the body, strengthen the liver so that the liver is detoxing appropriately. You can use herbs to help with that. You can use foods to help with that. You know, so many like with pumpkin seeds, they're wonderful for helping with deworming, but they're also high in zinc and help with your immune system and stuff like that. We can use them as food. We don't have to use them therapeutically. Same with garlic and onions and ginger and our bitter greens and our fermented foods. Those are all going to give our body the nutrients it needs to be strong and resilient and bounce back and build the terrain and cleanse, but and also help us get the things out that need to be moved out of the body.
This all comes back down to building your health to a high degree because when you're really
Yes.
healthy, your body can help fight off these parasites as well. And I think in Christopher, well, I know that Dr. Christopher, the gut cleanse is 21 days, and I believe his parasite cleanse is 7 days. So he didn't make you do anything long term, and that's, I believe that's
Right.
probably the best way to go about it.
I do too. I do think that you do have to do a couple, at least 6 weeks because we have to
Yeah.
with the parasites, just because, like I said, we have to kill the adults, we have to kill
Yeah.
the juveniles, and then we have to kill the eggs as well.
Mhm.
Just like if anyone's ever dealt with lice. Oh my gosh, how many times have
Oh,
people had lice? Right? And so
yes.
that's not controversial. Isn't that interesting? Like, why is lice accepted or crabs accepted as something that could happen, but parasites are woo-woo?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Why is it that I mean, I know my dogs that need to be dewormed because they literally eat poop, right?
Oh
But then
yeah.
I'm petting the dog. I'm snuggling with my dog. So why do I think that I couldn't be susceptible to whatever they're susceptible to, right?
Yeah.
And if I have that whatever is going on, I'm passing it to my partner as
Mhm.
well because they're very, very easily transmitted. And one more thing before we go, I'm sure there's more than one more thing, but I wanted to talk about this. And so you can look in the research talking about that brain, the parasite that gets into the brain, and how it changes behaviors and emotions. One of the things that we learned was these parasites are so smart. The way they can change our thinking, the way the things that we do, they will actually go into a mouse, change the mouse's brain so that it's attracted to cat urine, so that it gets closer to the cat, so the cat can kill it, so that it can then invade the cat. And so that's what it does. And then it changes the cat's brain, makes it more vulnerable to being attacked. And so just imagine that. So I'm not saying this to make us afraid. I'm just saying, these things they do exist and there are things that we can do. And all many, many, many other countries around the world still do these things. They still do cleansing. They do things. There are gentle ways to do it. You don't have to go in and bomb everything. We can do a gentle cleanse and help restore our body.
It's traditional wisdom that's been lost for some reason in our country anyway.
Right. Right.
But there's nothing wrong with doing periodic cleanses. I mean, I believe in cleansing the liver. I believe in cleansing the colon. Why not do some
Yes.
parasite cleansing?
Yes. Yes. Do you have anything else you want to add? Like I don't want to leave anybody full of fear. There's nothing to be afraid of.
No,
It's just if you have
no.
no answers and you're confused, why am I not getting answers? It's something that we should consider.
Well, the good news is if you do have parasites, they're easy to kill off. I mean, Hulda
Right.
Clark works really well. Christopher, you can get rid of them. So don't
Right.
worry about that.
Right. There are ways that you can do it. Work with somebody, discuss it with your medical provider. Hopefully you have a functional medicine doctor or an herbalist or something that you can work with. But it's definitely something to look into if you just don't have an explanation for your symptoms.
Mhm.
Anyway, I know it was a very controversial topic. Hopefully, we didn't stir up too much. We would love your feedback. Have you tried a cleanse? What was good about it? What was bad about it? I've had bad cleanses, and so that's why I'm saying make sure you work with somebody. I've had a really bad experience. I've had a really good experience. So work with somebody knowledgeable. We love to hear from you. Subscribe to our podcast or to us on YouTube and comment. We want to hear from you. Anyway, join us again next week. If you'd like to learn more about Dan, go to danthenaturalman.com. To learn more about me, I am at holisticgen.com. Until next time, have a fabulous week.